Is Jake Haener ready to step into the Saints QB2 role? We are here, the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. This was sent to me in a request. Psychic Firefighter sent this to me on Twitter. Let me tell you this, two very unique professions, to be a psychic and a firefighter. You would think they would go in tandem. You could foresee the future fires before they happened. Or is that a fortune teller? Is there a difference? Who knows? We are reacting, again, ladies and gentlemen, I'm always down for a recommendation. So if you have a video or a topic or whatever you want me to react to, get it to me on the socials, get into the description. All the links are in there, or drop a comment. Twitter is probably the best way to get to me. I check that the most. So we're talking Jake Haener today. We're going to talk about this in depth. So the entire video is not all Jake Haener. They go in some Super Bowl prep at the end here, so we will skip that. Let's get right into it, shall we?
Absolutely. Earlier in the week, we talked about QB1 and Derek Carr. We talked about who was QB2 last year and Jameis Winston. But today, we're staying on the quarterback train, but we're talking about a different guy. Quarterback Jake Haener, drafted as a rookie last season. And if Jameis leaves New Orleans, as he is expected to, it would be Jake Haener, as of right now, who would step into that QB2 role. So, Sean, we saw a little bit of Jake Haener during training camp.
Yeah, it sounds like Winston's gone. Sounds like Winston. I've heard he might be the starting quarterback in Atlanta. Wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be a fun narrative if Jameis Winston goes from the Bucs to the Saints, then to Atlanta, and he's playing the Saints twice a year? That'd be bananas. But yeah, it looks like Winston's gone, so we would assume Haener would step in and be the QB2. He'd be the backup quarterback. Him and Carr, both Fresno State guys, so it makes sense that Jake would be the guy.
He was kind of the training camp MVP. He actually looked like a rookie during the preseason, probably didn't do a lot to impress the fans that didn't get a chance to see him in training camp. But you saw both. How would you feel going into the season with Jake Haener as quarterback number 2 behind Derek Carr?
Yeah, I wanted to.
All right, so I have pontificated word of the day before about Jake Haener, or not Jake Haener specifically, but about the idea of backup quarterbacks. If your starting quarterback goes down, you are in a world of hurt. Ask the Bengals. All right, Jake Browning came in there, did fine. It's still Jake Browning. It's still the Bengals. Now I know, or he's still a backup. I know in some situations, Tom Brady, Kurt Warner, it's worked out where the backup comes in. All of a sudden, the backup is the greatest quarterback to ever live. I would tell you this: those are incredibly rare situations. I don't think Jake Haener is Tom Brady. I don't think Jake Haener is Kurt Warner. I'll put it. This is might be shocking for a lot of people to hear. I hope I never see Jake Haener throw a touchdown pass. And you're going to sit there and say, whoa, James. Why would you say something like that? I'll tell you why. Because if he plays while Derek Carr is on the roster, that means Derek Carr has gotten hurt, or Derek Carr is so bad that they have benched Derek Carr. I don't want either one of those things to happen. If Jake Haener's on the field, I am stressed. If he's on the field, I remember I was in an Uber. I was in an Uber during, I guess, preseason, and the Uber driver had WWL on the radio, which, first of all, huge. I mean, guys, if you're not listening to my YouTube while you're driving, why even have speakers in your car? But they were talking about Jake Haener, and me and the driver were talking, and he asked me what I thought about Jake Haener, and I said I hope he never plays, and we laughed, and then I tipped him, $3, and I got on my merry way. That's how it happened. But it holds true. Every team, any team in the NFL, who do you consider the best backup in the NFL? Whoever you think the best backup in the NFL is, I guarantee you that fan base does not want them in the game, because that means really bad stuff has happened. Okay, so I mean, that's really kind of my overall thoughts on the idea of how concerned I am about the quarterback 2 role. I hope the quarterback 2 role sits there, holds a clipboard, never puts their helmet on. Could they possibly have to? Maybe. I guess so. But unless we get someone like Tom Brady or Kurt Warner as the backup, if the starter goes down and the backup has to play, I consider the season over. I consider the season basically done. I consider us moving on. think about how good Joe Flacco played for Cleveland. Backup quarterback, played good story, fun story. What does it mean in the grand scheme of things? Virtually nothing, right? Again, Jake Browning went on the road, beat Jacksonville. Huge game. What does that mean for the Bengals? Nothing. They have Joe Burrow. Once Joe Burrow went down, season was over. That's it, right? So, I'd temper it. I'd really, really temper how much of an investment any fan puts into who the backup quarterback is.
To refresh.
Unless, there's one caveat, unless the backup quarterback was drafted to be the starter immediately. Like when the Chiefs drafted Patrick Mahomes, when the Green Bay Packers drafted Jordan Love, they're telling you, we're drafting this player and we have a very short timetable before he will be the starter. That is not how Jake Haener was drafted. Okay, Jake Haener was a fourth-round draft pick. There is no timetable, there's no promise that he will play. Jake Haener is a free agent signing, a draft pick away, a trade away from never, ever stepping on the field for the Saints. If the Saints draft Bo Nix in the first round this year, Jake Haener can go ahead and update his LinkedIn profile because Bo Nix, the Saints would be telling you, we're drafting Bo Nix and he will be the starter once Derek Carr is done. So,
I do this from time to time, not just with Jake Haener. I'll go back and read my old stuff just to kind of refresh the narrative, refresh the talking points that we were talking about. He popped really early in training camp, practice number 4, practice number 5. It was like, whoa, who is this guy? And I mean, everybody took notice. He was making plays. He was decisive. He was accurate, confident. And, it goes hand in hand. When you know what you're doing, you're confident. When you're confident, you make stronger decisions. And when you're decisive, usually that makes big plays. And it wasn't just his playmaking ability or his ability to execute the offense, but because he was so proficient, all of a sudden the third.
Also, got to worry about a quarterback that wears a glove. Bottom line. I'm always concerned. When I see quarterbacks wearing gloves, 2 gloves, 1 glove, always throws me off. I'm always concerned about that.
Third team reps at offensive line got more important. The third team reps at wide receiver got more important. At running back got more important. But I wanted to go back and just refresh it. I printed out an old blog that I wrote after this is practice 9. So he was still kind of on this trajectory. And I just wrote, the topic is Haener excels in red zone. I said another day, another impressive performance from rookie quarterback Jake Haener. This time he looked like a seasoned veteran in the red zone. He opened with a dart to Lucas Krull on a back shoulder throw for a touchdown. Krull was held and could only get one hand on the ball to make the catch. On the next play, the pair connected on a score on a bootleg. Haener's next pass got away from him and he was picked off by Ugo Amade.
This is next level right here. To print out your blog, to bring on your podcast and then read the blog onto the podcast. This is what have we been missing? Fox 8 is just absolutely blowing through the boundaries of what we thought was possible on podcasts.
It was his first interception of camp. He didn't stay down for long though. When his reps came around again, he found Lynn Bowden in the end zone for another score. Just to get you guys an idea of what we were talking about with Jake Haener, this is back in the first or second week of August. It was that good. It was that good. And when he got to a preseason game, he had his moments where he looked like a rookie. He had some moments where he looked like he bounced back. But by the end of the preseason, you could tell right now you're good as the number 3. But can he go into the season comfortably as the number 2? I believe he can develop into a confident number 2, and we'll see.
Yeah, sure, whatever. All right, I guess he can. But again, it was the same with Winston last year, where Jameis Winston, absolutely very capable backup, no doubt about it. But at no point do you want him in the game. At no point are you hoping he's in the game. Because, like I said, that means a lot of bad stuff has happened. That means there was either an injury. That means Carr was benched. A lot of negativity has to happen for that player to play. So I just don't foresee any situation where Jake Haener as the backup quarterback is impactful on the Saints season. Let's say, what's the best case scenario? Let's throw out the idea that he could become the next Tom Brady. Let's throw that out. Let's throw out the idea of Carr getting injured Haener stepping in, Haener taking us to the Super Bowl, Haener winning the Super Bowl, and then Haener having a 20-year career where he wins 6-7 Super Bowls. So let's take that part out. What is the most positive trajectory for Jake Haener being impactful for the Saints? Carr plays 2 more seasons, plays pretty well. Then Carr either finishes his deal or gets traded or something happens to where Carr is out. Then Haener has been, at that point, he's been the backup for 3 years. Then in Haener's 4th season, Haener becomes the starting quarterback, and then he's good. In that situation, and that is such a rare. I mean, that means Haener would have to get a second contract as a guy who was a 4th-round pick who was exclusively at that point a backup. We would have had to have made 0 other signings, 0 other quarterback draft picks. It's just it's one of those things where it's way more rare than I think people see it. Like it's very rare for a late round draft pick quarterback to not play immediately and then stick around, develop, kind of hang around, everything go good for the franchise, everything go good for the team, and then they play later on. I think what'll happen, if I was a betting man, I think Haener will, and this is barring us drafting a quarterback or anything like that. I think Haener will probably stick around this year. He'll be the backup. Next year, he'll probably be 3rd string. We'll probably find either a free agent we'll go get, or maybe at that point we draft somebody, and then Haener will not sign a second contract with the Saints, and then Haener will go somewhere else, and he'll probably be the backup somewhere else for a short stint, and then he'll probably be out of the league. That's probably how it'll go. It'll be very similar, like A.J. McCarron, be very similar to stories like that, where he'll bounce in and out of the practice squad and the backups for teams or the teams that need to fill spots. And that's probably how it'll play out. Unless Jake Haener makes an enormous leap forward and he somehow gets himself to where he's like a viable starter in the NFL.
See what happens beyond that. When you're saying that are you confident in saying Jake Haener is going to start for you? He's 1 play away from starting for you at any point in a regular season game. Based off what I saw last year, he would not have been ready.
Right.
But hopefully he took the last year knowledge, can grow on that this year, and hopefully become strong enough to be, or at least in the mix for the number 2 quarterback. Here's the trick, though.
Right.
You wouldn't go into camp with just Derek Carr and Jake Haener and say, "Oh, we're good.
Yeah,
we're good."
Correct. Yes.
That
You'll
bring
bring someone
happen.
in.
To me, you would still have to have some form of competition there. You would add a quarterback either via the draft.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and that's going to be Haener's. That's going to be the difficult part. Where let's say you go bring in a veteran quarterback, just someone bouncing around. Let's just say Nick Foles. I'm just going to make something up. You bring in Nick Foles. Foles is going to be the backup. Foles will be the backup. Guy won a Super Bowl, right? So he would be the backup. So then Haener's 3rd string. That 3rd string quarterback slot is very precarious because you're bouncing in and out of the active roster. You're bouncing in and out from practice squad. You're bouncing all that stuff. And like I said, then you have the second contract you got to deal with. Do you get the second contract? Probably not, right? So then you're, and we see it way too much. We just saw it in Tampa Bay. Kyle Trask is there. Kyle Trask was drafted, the 3rd round? A lot of people thought he's the guy. He's the successor. He will be the next guy in Tampa. They bring in Baker Mayfield, a veteran, just to compete. That's all they brought him in for, was to compete with Trask. Mayfield was better. They were unsure. They play Mayfield. He's Mayfield's a starting quarterback level player. Takes Tampa to the playoffs, divisional title. Mayfield's going to be the starter next year. Trask kind of missed his window. Trask is not going to be with Tampa Bay for very much longer because he missed that development window. He missed the window to play. If you get drafted as a 3rd, 4th, 5th round quarterback and you don't play for that team in the first couple of years, you're gone. They'll just recycle it with somebody else because they are not. You cannot forget about that contract. Teams don't want that second contract is very, very I will say precarious again. Very precarious for teams. So if they're looking at, do we sign Jake Haener on a second contract to potentially play him, or do we draft a new quarterback in the third round and just keep going with the cycle? And then we've got this new quarterback we drafted on a rookie deal in the third round. We can have him back there, bring in a veteran to be the backup. That's what's going to happen. Just like I said, that's what will happen to Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask will be gone. His window of the chance to play will not be there anymore in Tampa Bay. Does that mean he can't play? No, doesn't mean that. Do I think Jake Haener is bad? No. I just think Jake Haener is in a situation that's very difficult for quarterbacks to get out of. They need something like what happened with Russell Wilson, where Russell gets taken late, he comes into Seattle, he immediately competes, some other stuff happens, all of a sudden he's the starter. He performs well, boom. Now he's the starter, he's young, he's on a rookie contract. The Seahawks say, we're going to go with this guy, the rest is history. That's how it works. So unless you play early as one of those like late round draft picks, it's hard for a quarterback to really get going.
And look, if they draft another quarterback, which is certainly possible, early to late round, early, mid, or late rounds, that's certainly if they draft a quarterback in the second round, that could change this topic altogether. But if they draft another late round quarterback, then he's someone that could potentially compete with and battle it out and likely win that competition.
Let's say they draft Michael Pratt. Okay, let's say they draft Michael Pratt in the fourth round. I'm just going to make something up. All of a sudden, Pratt has a more advantageous, man, we're dropping word of the days all over the place. All of a sudden, Pratt has a more advantageous, that's a difficult word, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not editing the video. I could stop it right here. I could edit it. But we're going to lock this word down. All of a sudden, Pratt would have a more advantageous timeline because he would have the extra year on the contract, the extra year of development, all of that. So then Haener would get pushed behind Pratt, even though Haener has been here for a year, even though Haener has an extra year of development, even though Haener might technically be the backup, the long-term vision, he would fall behind Pratt. That's how it would work out. And I would be stunned if the Saints went into the season with Derek Carr, Jake Haener, and then like a Michael Pratt. That'd be a really weird roster building thing. Usually you're going to have like a veteran quarterback in between your project guy and your starting quarterback, just in case you need someone to go in the game, like we saw this year. Twice, Derek Carr got hurt. Thank God we had Jameis Winston. So I'd be surprised if it was Carr, Haener, and a draft guy. So it's just part of the business, really. I mean, and this young man with the pompadour hair, he said it best. Like, they're one draft pick away from this whole conversation being moot. From this whole, you're one free agent signing away from, just gone. Haener goes from being the backup quarterback to playing golf at Alderman Park every weekend. Just how it works. The NFL is tough. The NFL is, and then the bad news is next year there'll be another draft. And there will be another draft, and there will be another draft, and there will be more free agent signings, and there will be trades. Like, it happens. It happens, and you're always one draft pick, one trade, one free agent away from falling so far off of the, like the Browns. Great example again. DTR from UCLA. I love DTR. He played in the preseason, looked really good for the Browns. A lot of people thought maybe he could push Deshaun Watson. Maybe even DTR could be the guy. Maybe he could be the future of the Browns. Then he plays in a regular season game. He ain't ready. What do the Browns do? They go get Joe Flacco. What happens? Do you think DTR is still in the long-term playbook for the Browns? No. Not even because of him. Just because of the situation now where timeline, it doesn't work out. Timeline now, they're dealing with Flacco and Watson. DTR is now pushed further down the roster. DTR won't be a Brown in a couple of years. It's just how it works. DTR looked great in the preseason. They drafted him. Could develop him. Timeline says otherwise. Could he do it for another team? Maybe. Maybe he can go somewhere else and shine. Sure. But it's tough out there. Tyson Bagent with the Bears. Tyson Bagent, late round draft pick, plays backup, plays well. Could develop him. But they're going to draft Caleb Williams. They have to deal with Justin Fields. Tyson Bagent doesn't have a chance. Doesn't have a chance. No fault of his own. Just how the cookie crumbles. The NFL, roster building, player development, all those things kind of happen independently. and then they meet in these Venn diagrams. And you need, as a player, you need the perfect timeline, the long-term trajectory, the contract to match, your play to be on the level for whatever you're asked to do. It all has to happen at the same time. And if it doesn't happen at the same time, you just get pushed out. The Tom Brady thing, the Kurt Warner thing, those are very serendipitous moments. A lot of luck goes into that. We saw Cooper Rush in Dallas. Cooper Rush comes in, wins, what they go 4-0. Dak comes back. Where's Cooper Rush? Is he even in the NFL? Who knows? No idea. He's not part of the timeline. Contract doesn't work out. So should Cooper Rush have had a chance to be a starter in the NFL somewhere? Maybe. But he didn't have the serendipitous situation, and he'll be out.
Or what I think could realistically happen, they sign a veteran journeyman to come on in, got some experience, and let those two battle it out.
Yeah,
back in 2000 in either 10 or 11, I'd have to go back and look at the actual year. The Saints did this. They brought in, you remember Patrick Ramsey, the old Tulane quarterback? They brought him in.
Played in Washington.
And they had Chase Daniel, and they let those two battle it out. And in the end, they gave it to Chase Daniel and let Patrick Ramsey walk. So
Daniel's another good example. Chase Daniels is a guy who's been a backup for, I think, every team in the NFL. At some point, it was probably the conversation of like, hey, should we develop Chase Daniels? Where's Chase Daniels in the long-term plan? Never worked out. There was always someone else drafted or always someone else signed or a quarterback competition or something happened to where Daniels just never really got the shot. Any fault of his own? Probably not. Just how it works.
So it's just something to keep in mind. They've done that before, but I would be hesitant to just pencil him in automatically as the number 2 right now, but I absolutely 100% believe he can become the number 2 through natural competition, whether that competition be another draft pick quarterback or a veteran journeyman quarterback that's got some experience that could be kind of making that last little rotation that they do toward the end of their respective careers. Add some competition to me, add competition everywhere this training camp. Up the energy, be very competitive, play like you understand the circumstances you're under right now from the start of training camp on. Him being suspended last year for 6 games was certainly interesting. It caught everybody off guard.
Yeah, listen, he got suspended for performance-enhancing drugs. It's never wrong to be strong, okay? I'm never going to fault a guy for trying to get his bench press up. I'm never going to fault a guy for trying to get yoked and jacked out of his mind. I'm never going to fault a guy for trying to get vascular, muscularly dense, engorged. That's what life's all about, okay? You want to be able, you want to double lat spread and flap your bat wings to block out the sun. I'm there. I'm with you, Jake. So if you're going to GNC and spend a couple $100s to get absolutely, dense, voluptuous, cool. If you whoopsie poopsie took something that's on the banned list, but your deadlift goes up, I think it's a win.
And I don't look. I guess was it PEDs? I guess is what it was. If you look at him, he doesn't look like a PED guy. I mean, that's not.
Well, that's kind of the reason he's probably taking
not
PEDs.
A huge guy.
Right.
That's the reason he's taking PEDs. Is that exactly what this guy said? He said, "Hey, he doesn't look like he's taking PEDs. Even more reason to take them. If you listen, here's some advice for you. If you don't think you look like someone that could be accused of taking PEDs, you probably need to up something. You need to up your food intake, your protein intake, do some more push-ups. You always want to be the guy that people look at and they're like, is this guy on roids? Hey, is that guy over there? Is he juicing? Even if you're not juicing, because you want people to think that guy could be juicing. If you're walking around and people are saying, I 100% know that person's not juicing, you're doing something wrong. That's just a fact.
So I think it caught everybody off guard. I don't know if that would ever be held against him. And I go back to the Saints.
Perfect example. This fella right here with the moose in his hair. Does anyone in the comment section think he could be juicing right now? No. Everyone knows he's not. Now, if I flex this rocket right here, there's a couple people that would say, well, hold on a second. Is James juicing? See what I'm saying?
source that reached out to me and told me this kid is unbelievable. This kid, I can't believe how much farther along he is than other rookie quarterbacks we've seen. But they added at the end, I just wish he was an inch or two taller, because he is somewhat of a smaller
he's
type
very small.
quarterback. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, back to the big picture topic at hand. Can he be the number 2? I absolutely think he can compete and earn the number 2 spot in this quarterback room.
Correct. And there's 2 things on my mind when it comes to Jake Haener. Number one, a lot of Saints fans still may be unfamiliar with him, but when you hear his name, you may roll your eyes because you think of the quote-unquote ghosts of Garrett Grayson, the ghosts of Ian Book, guys who the Saints have drafted in the middle rounds. And
Great example. Garrett Grayson, Ian Book, drafted them at any point were the Saints thinking we could develop these guys in a couple years, 2, 3, 4 years down the road. If we develop them, then maybe they could be the starter. No. They got in there, they got chewed up by the system, and then we signed somebody else. We signed Jameis, or we signed Derek Carr, or we drafted Jake Haener, or we drafted this person, and then Garrett Grayson and Ian Book and whoever else are gone puck on. That is the exact machine I'm talking about. Could Garrett Grayson or Ian Book have succeeded if we gave them 4 years of development and then let them try and be the starting quarterback? Maybe. But that's just not how the NFL goes. The long term, I know this will be an interesting comment section, because I think a lot of people do like Jake Haener, or like the idea of drafting a quarterback and then seeing them through this like insane development process to one day being a starter. I would put on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being high, I would put the long-term plan and development and chances of Jake Haener being the starting quarterback for the Saints, I would put it at 0. I'd put it at 0. If he doesn't play this season, which he won't, more than likely he will never ever get a chance to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. Bad timing. And that really is all it is bad timing. And this video, I could be totally validated by the time the draft comes around, because if we take a quarterback, that tells you all you need to know. If we take Bo Nix, if we take Michael Pratt, if we take any quarterback in the draft, that tells you exactly the timeline the Saints have for Jake Haener. Because they wouldn't be taking a quarterback if they thought we already have the heir apparent to Derek Carr in the building. They wouldn't take a quarterback. They just go sign a veteran. And then if we go sign a veteran, and that veteran is the backup, and Jake Haener's on the practice squad or something, that tells you again where he's at. Writing's on the wall, ladies and gentlemen.
they really, I don't want to say waste of time, but they really didn't accomplish anything meaningful in New Orleans. It was in a way a wasted draft pick. Don't be so quick to bring Jake Haener together with those guys, to group them together, because Jake Haener was very impressive in training camp, and we know training camp is, you know, team versus team.
Ian Book started. Like, think about that. Ian Book started a game. Pretty sure a primetime game. So, you know, I mean, like that tells you what they thought about Ian Book at the time. I mean, there was a lot of injuries and stuff that went into that, but Ian Book started a primetime game for the Saints. And then there was no conversation about developing or long-term or any of that stuff. It was just, hey, man, where are your shoes? Take them off, get on the bus, and I don't care where you're going, but you ain't going to New Orleans.
You're not bringing in other defenses, but it's the confidence that we saw. And Jake Haener spoke about it. He was very confident. And don't be confused into thinking the same Jake Haener that you did see in the preseason is the same Jake Haener you'll see going forward, because he did get to sit under two veteran quarterbacks in Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. And no matter what you think of Carr or Winston from a talent or winning perspective, it's important for young rookie quarterbacks to be around veterans, guys who can show them the ropes. And
yeah, well, Chase Daniel sat under Drew Brees for how long? And what did that get? Where did that get him?
How things work in the NFL when it comes to preparing for a game, when it comes for studying about a defense. And Jake Haener had that in that locker room. The second thing I wanted to bring up, you talked about the veteran quarterbacks that the Saints can bring in to maybe give them a little bit of competition. And I was looking at that too. All of these guys are people who will be free agents. Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Drew Lock, Josh Dobbs, all guys who have been around the block, been there, done that, can come in and really push Jake Haener, and we'll see if Jake Haener can maybe beat one of those guys out. And another guy who I put an asterisk around, Sam Darnold, currently in San Francisco,
Clint
working
Kubiak.
under Clint Kubiak.
Yeah.
He's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
Kubiak's coming in as OC. Could he potentially bring Darnold with him to compete with Jake Haener for that number 2 spot? Because Darnold's been backing up Sam.
I mean, honestly, I can't believe these two fellas set this segment up. I really can't. I can't believe that they're having this conversation about Jake Haener, and neither one of them have said, you know what, he more than likely he's not going to play. Like, I mean, if Sam Darnold got brought in as the backup, do you think Sam Darnold is in the long-term plan for the Saints? No. You think Sam Darnold right now is in the long-term plan for the 49ers? No. Absolutely not. If Brock Purdy goes down, if Brock Purdy it doesn't work out in San Francisco is going to find a different option. They're going to either go sign somebody, go get Kirk Cousins, they'll make a trade, they'll draft someone. It ain't Sam Darnold. He is filling a roster spot. And this, I think, is the bigger picture here, is that not every roster spot is like, okay, this is the young guy, he's the backup now, he's definitely going to be the starter in a couple of years. Kendra Miller, same thing. He's rookie, third string running back. He is not on like a guaranteed linear path to one day being the starter. Right now, he's just filling a roster spot. That's it. He could just as easily be on the Steelers in a year, 2 years. You know, it's just how the NFL works. Like, it's just a rotating door, and not everyone gets their fair shot to move up the ladder and progress or whatever, and one day be a starter. Doesn't happen.
San Fran, we saw him in Carolina, started a little bit, backed up Cam Newton for a while. He's kind of been a journeyman ever since he got traded from the Jets. Could that be a guy maybe you settle in at the number 2 spot? So the Saints certainly have options, but I don't want to overlook Jake Haener as one of those options.
Yeah,
I will be. I am.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like,
I actively am.
You mentioned some of those names. Those guys play a lot of football, and if you're a coach, you naturally would have some comfort in that if you were a snap away from having to play the backup quarterback, which it's on everyone's mind, especially recently in the NFL. Look at the Saints this past year. They had 3 different times where Derek Carr exited a game. And to me, let's just say that situation played itself out and they signed a Ryan Tannehill or whatever the case may be. And it's obvious while Haener is growing, he's not there yet. I still think he makes the team. I still think he's on the roster. I still think he's on the roster as a number 3 quarterback, and they would just give him a little more time to certainly grow in that regard.
That part right there is where I'm pushing back. The whole idea of like, let's just give him more time to grow and whatever, that does not happen. They're not guaranteed.
Yeah, man, I think all options would be on the table at that point, and you're kind of starting fresh with this new offense because everyone's kind of starting at the same level, unless you bring in a guy from Kubiak's previous stops. So
kind of, sort of, but not really. Like, you're starting fresh, but all eyes are on Derek Carr. Like, Kubiak is worried about getting all the starters up to snuff. He's worried about getting everyone up to ready to roll. He's not worried about developing his practice squad quarterback. He's worried about, is Derek Carr good enough with the system? Is he ready to roll enough with the system that I've created to go? Are we in a position where we can win? He's concerned about that. The immediate thing for Kubiak, and I mean immediate as in the first year, is not, let me get Carr and everybody on the same page and let me, get my office set up and let me figure out where restaurants are in New Orleans. Let me figure all that stuff. Oh, and let me develop our third string quarterback. That's not going to be Kubiak's initial. So that actually kind of hurts Haener, I think, is that he's not Kubiak's guy. Like, if we draft again, I keep saying this guy because he's a 3rd round-ish grade. If we draft Michael Pratt, not only does Pratt have the advantage over Haener that he's got the better contract situation, the better, the age and all of that, but he's also Kubiak's guy. Kubiak didn't draft Haener, right? So then the Kubiak's preference is going to be Pratt because he drafted him. That's his pick. We see that all the time too, where a new coach comes in, a new scheme comes in, they want their players, they have a vision for their players. Haener's just there. right? So the odds are stacked against him.
I think all options would be on the table at that point. So I just think because everyone's turning over a new leaf offensively. I mean, everyone's kind of starting from zero. Everyone's kind of starting from scratch now. That's going to be fascinating to watch that all develop as we get into the OTAs, mini camp, and obviously into training camp as well.
Definitely, and I think a new system might even be better for Jake Haener, especially as a smaller quarterback, something that'll kind of get him out the pocket, get him moving around, get him different throwing angles. That might be better for Haener than maybe Pete Carmichael's system was.
Exactly.
Well, you would argue the pushback on that would be Pete Carmichael's system had Drew Brees the quarterback. Drew Brees is a small quarterback, so you would think that system would be beneficial for a smaller quarterback. So quick little pushback there, but
Exactly. Exactly. And if you watch the guy operating that offense right now, which we'll get into in a second, Brock Purdy, small in stature, but you never feel like his size is a detriment in that offense because they're able to move him. He's able to feel stuff. Just the way he's able to, and the way they sort of define the play where it's just clear for where the quarterback has to go with the football. It feels like they're able to offset any size deficiency. So I think Jake Haener's in the mix. I think that's the bottom line we're both getting at. Right. I think he's in the mix. I don't think it's a guarantee.
Yeah, bottom line I'm getting at is that he's not in the mix. He's not in the mix at all. He's not in the long-term plan at all. I don't think Haener, I wish him the best. It is what it is. But I think he's just part of the NFL machine. I think he's in a bad situation. He's, like I said, he's a NFL draft pick away, free agent signing away from probably being on a different team. So it is what it is. Look, again, nothing wrong with Haener, but the writing's on the wall. I've seen this story too many times. So let me know in the comments below what you think. I know a lot of you probably are hoping Haener gets a chance, but you got to step back and think, like, what in the world would have to happen for him to actually get a chance? And are we actually going to develop this quarterback for 4 years? I don't know. Doesn't seem like something that would happen, but it is what it is. Let me know in the comments below what you think, where you come down on this. I'll be down there reacting, replying. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.